voilà.
So I love it when the Spirit has the last laugh, because I thought to myself as I was preparing this morning's message, it's like, I feel like I'm knitting a message. And this morning's worship was knit with intentional pauses of silence. And here's Jennifer knitting, and it's like, okay, this is really funny. So I was drawing threads from the Judeo-Christian scriptures, the story of Jesus' birth and his ministry, and weaving them all together into my message. And I hope I make the point that I'm trying to make, but I might have to. My grandmother, when she taught me how to crochet, she made me unravel the whole thing when I was done. She said, you can never be too proud to not be willing to undo what you've messed up or what isn't right. So hope if I don't make my point, I'll come back and do it again. So as we gather all the threads that I'm talking about this morning, the first one I want to start us off with is an invitation, a thread of invitation. And I'm like, yeah, y'all, I know, having raised myself in the evangelical Christian tradition, the invitation's supposed to come at the end. Y'all well remember those hymns that would guilt you into coming up front. But today I'm going to start off with an invitation. And that's just to use your imagination. It might be too early in the morning for some of you, but some of you might have gotten up so late that it feels like it's just a continuation of your dream imagination. The second thread that we're going to use is only one of two stories from the Christian Gospels of Jesus' birth. You'd think there had been whole accounts of it in every gospel, but there's just intimations, not actual stories. This one you know well. It's from the second chapter of Luke. I actually memorized it as a first grader and recited it in the school play, so I remember it. But this reading, I thought I'd shake it up a little bit, is from the Message Bible translation. So Joseph went from the Galilean town of Nazareth up to Bethlehem in Judah, David's town, for the census. As a descendant of David, he had to go there. He went with Mary, his fiancée, who was pregnant. While they were there, the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to a son, her firstborn. It's a boy. She wrapped him in a blanket and laid him in the manger because there was no room for them upstairs in the hostel. So I want us to imagine that we're standing in that stable where Jesus was said to have been laid and swaddled tenderly by his mother after his birth. Maybe he was tended by his aunties and cousins who were family of Joseph and would never have let her birth alone. And maybe we're standing just beside the shepherds. I can even smell their garments that smell of the animals and the outdoors. They've made their way from their own expectant waiting and watching in the silence in the fields, and yet they are still stunned and stirred by that angelic proclamation of this baby's birth. The advantage we have as we're mingling there with all the animals and the shepherds is that we know the stories, we know the conversations, we know the events that led up to this night, as well as those stories that will continue from this night over the centuries that will follow. Maybe we're standing beside of a donkey or a lamb or sheep, all of which became symbols of Jesus' ministry, which we know lies ahead in this point in time. But none of those stories and events are known to those who stand here with us. And only a few, if any other than Mary and Joseph, know the promises that were made to Mary and Joseph by those angelic beings about the role this child was to fill. I imagine they would be equally as stunned and stirred if they could see how his life would unfold. So standing there as we're looking down at this baby in the manger, I want us to pick up another thread. And for this one, we're going to reach way back before Jesus' story, back in time for the thread found in Psalm 139, which happens to be my favorite psalm. As Dan and I were talking this morning about my 4-year recording process, it was the only time I stood in 4 years to speak, was at Winston-Salem meeting to recite Psalm 139. The psalmist begins by proclaiming, "Lord, you have searched me and you know me." These words speak of an intimate, all-encompassing connection with divine source, and they affirm the Creator's deep love and presence. This psalm reminds us that the Holy One is always present, always searching, always in relationship with us, no matter where we're at in our journey. The psalmist goes on to say, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." The writer reminds us we're no more isolated and random beings than was Jesus. We are also part of the sacredness of life. We are knit together by a higher power. Whether we call that higher power God or universe or source, no matter our language or tradition, we are part of something greater, something divine. That divinity has known our deepest, innermost essence from the get-go. If you've ever actually done any kind of handiwork like knitting or carpentry or sewing.
Calligraphy.
Of what? Calligraphy. Oh my stars. Calligraphy. Crocheting. You know the focus and the determination that goes into creating something by hand. My mother used to, her favorite thing was, "Shh, I'm counting." You have to stay focused and be very meticulous to make it the best that you can. And it's uniquely yours because you made it. Even if someone followed the same pattern, it wouldn't be the same or look the same. The truth in the words of Psalm 139 is that we too are amazingly and wonderfully crafted, even if we don't know it. We are unique expressions of the divine, created with care and intention. We are not an accident. And as such, we embody a spark of the Creator. I like to think that the Creator's fingerprints are all over whatever they crafted. This divine spark that we embody isn't exclusive to the baby in the manger. And I'm sorry if that's your theology, let's talk. That spark of divinity is within all of us. I do know that some people don't believe that the light within us is there until we acknowledge Jesus as our Savior, but that I would love to have tea with you. If that's how you feel. Around the world and in many traditions, the birth of a child in general is a moment when the potential for good and for healing and for peace is born all over again. Jesus' birth is symbolic, it's a universal symbol of hope and renewal and transformation that's available through the divine spark of light within each of us. It's a reminder that God is not distant or detached, but is present within us and with us in the most intimate and human ways. You and I are knit with divine love and wisdom. And that's why I liken this message to "We were knit for this." For the last thread of this knitted story, we're going to reach into the future stories of Jesus, this baby Jesus in a manger. In the Christian Gospel of John, we hear Jesus saying, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." That, I don't know anybody yet who's learned to walk on water or believed enough to walk on water or to turn it into wine. But I feel like these words that are attributed to Jesus are also an invitation. They invite us to recognize that we're not merely creations of or containers for the divine light. We're called to be active participants in the divine work of love, compassion, and healing. There are a lot, maybe many spiritual traditions that speak of the potential within each of us to bring about positive change, to practice love and kindness, metta, if you will, to act as agents of transformation in the world. Jesus' challenge is not exclusive. It's an invitation to all who seek to bring more light, more healing, and more love into the world. And it doesn't have to be hard. Just by being here gathered by community, y'all transformed me this morning, because my grandfather would say I was dragging my tail when I came in. And I just felt lifted from that just by being in your presence. In our Quaker tradition, we believe that there is that of God in everyone, that of God within. It's not just a lofty idea or some intellectual theology. It's a call to action, another invitation. Our faith should be our practice, and our practice should be reflecting our faith. All of us are capable of doing the same work for compassion, justice, and peace that Jesus exemplified, even if Jesus is a mythic person, even if Jesus was just a human being holy like the rest of us. That example of compassion, justice, and peace, like you said, Judith, it's a lot to step up to. So as we continue in this season of reflection and celebration of light, let us remember that Jesus' birth is symbolic of the ongoing presence of divine light in the world, manifesting itself in many ways, in many forms, and in all people. It isn't external to us. We don't have to find a star to guide us externally. We are illuminated from within, in our hearts and in our actions and in our relationships. We are called to be the bearers of that light. Not just in our private moments, that's really easy, but in our interactions with others and in the world around us. We are to be conduits of peace, to bring light where there's darkness, and to live with compassion toward all things. I'd like to finish off, and if you're a knitter, you will pardon the pun, finish off with these words by the beloved writer and storyteller Clarissa Pinkola Estes, best known for her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. I picked up this morning Untie the Strong Woman, which is another book of hers. But she writes, "My friends, do not lose heart. We are made for these times. We're knit for this. There is no time or energy to waste on what does not serve us, on endless plans, distractions, and doubts. We are called now to live the life we were born to live, to bring the work we were made to do to fruition. Let us be as luminous as the moon, which is full today, and as bright as the stars. There is light in you. Don't keep it hidden. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul light shines like gold in dark times." As we reflect on the symbology of the birth of Jesus, let us also remember that we are all knit with divine light, and that we are called to let that light shine through our lives in whatever way we are called to do so, and whatever way we are able to do so. And I would like to, if you will, allow me to close with vocal prayer. Divine Source, we thank you for the gift of your presence within us and in all things. Whether we call you God, universe, or some other name, we recognize that the light of love and wisdom is within every heart. Help us to see that light in ourselves, and then to see it in one another, and then to share it freely in our actions, our words, and our relationships. May we be instruments of peace, justice, and love in the world. And so it is. Amen.